Hey, what is up everybody? I am here to give you a video today, but before I start with the video, I want to talk about, as you can tell from the title down below, I want to mention that you guys should check out the Massasoit Wrestling Corner playlist right up here, because the Massasoit Wrestling Corner is going to be returning on this Friday, on September 11th, 2015. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I can't wait for the Massasoit Wrestling Corner to come back. I've really been looking forward to that all year, so I can't wait for that. So if you want to check out the playlist, you click right up here. And if you want to check out the Massasoit Wrestling Corner, it's going to be it will be on this channel, uploaded on September 11th, 2015. And we are going to be filming it at 2 p.m. Just so you guys know. And now that we've gotten that advertisement out of the way, I'm here to give you guys my review of WWE Jerry Springer Presents Too Hot for TV. I'm gonna give you a review of that series today, but before I start the series, I have to say what the name of the series is. And the name of the series is Deaths and Funerals. So this is pretty much anything revolving a death in the WWF, which stands for Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, which stands for World Wrestling Federation, or WWE, which stands for World Wrestling Entertainment. Any death that happened in that time, obviously these are going to be worked deaths, these aren't deaths that actually happened. So let's get right into it. This is hosted, by the way, by Jerry Springer. I always like to I want to make sure that I mention that. So the first one they do is the one with The Big Show. And they do the segment where Big Show's dad ended up passing away due to cancer. And actually, which is actually true. He actually did end up passing due to cancer, but he didn't die when they actually had said it. He died earlier. And they were doing the 10... and Big Show was crying about it. And they were doing the thing where they do the 10 tolled bells. I forget what they call it, but you know what I mean. When they do the moment of silence and they do the bells 10 times. And the Big Boss Man ended up interrupting it. And, yeah, he ended up interrupting it, and he had this code written out, just pretty much trashing the fact that the Big Show was just crying about his father, and how his father is happy that he ended up getting cancer, so he didn't have to be the father of the biggest idiot in the world. And it was a really good code. And then eventually Big Show's like pissed backstage, and they do the whole funeral with the Big Show, and he's talking about how his dad made a large room, and they have the casket like they're gonna bury it. And then the Big Boss Man pulls up in a police car, something you would probably see in like a movie or something, and talking about how the Big Show's crying because his dad, he's hitting on his mom. Big Show tries to get at him, and the Big Show and Big Boss Man ends up like pulling away, and Big Show falls off her to shoulder, and Big Boss Man ends up taking the casket. It wasn't a bad segment. This happened like in 1999, and it wasn't like a bad segment or anything. It just wasn't one of the greatest things in the world. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. And Big Show like tried to get on the casket to try to save it, and Big Boss Man's just driving off with Big Show on it. I thought that was pretty funny. At the time, the Big Show was the current reigning and defending WWF champion at this time. They were building up to a match between Big Show and the Big Boss Man. I don't know why they did that, but it was what it was. But yeah, it wasn't like one of the greatest segments. And then they did one with iOS, which is Owen R. Schweister. I don't remember what the R stands for, but he is pretty much the tax collector. And this is actually the best one. No, this isn't the best one, but this is one of the best ones. Because Owen would go to people's graves, and they would force people to take off the tombstones because they're not paying their taxes. Because they say, just because you're dead doesn't mean you don't pay your taxes. I think that's freaking great. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was awesome. And he would even like put property of iOS. I thought that was great. I really liked the iOS character because it actually gets heat. Because like I said, everybody hates to pay taxes. So I thought that one was great. And then it shows the Undertaker This one actually I'd say was my favorite one, is The Undertaker. It just kind of goes through all his moments in his career. When he was having a Buried Alive match with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he was telling Stone Cold Steve Austin he's gonna kill him. When he the Hell in a Cell match between himself and Mankind. When the Hell in a Cell match between himself and Edge, and then when he chokeslammed Vince McMahon. And they showed the stuff from the Hell in a Cell match with Mankind when he chokeslammed Mankind through the roof of the cell. They showed the Hell in a Cell match with Edge when he chokeslammed Edge off the ladder through the wind into like fire, like he chokeslammed him into hell. And it shows a match that happened. It shows the Survivor Series WWF versus WCW match when Undertaker chokeslammed Shane McMahon off the turnbuckle through the announcer's table. That was cool. And it just shows a lot of the Undertaker's moments. And then it goes into his Ministry of Darkness stage when he would sacrifice people like Viscera. When he was whipping Christian with the belt. That was funny. That actually was pretty cool. When he hung up Stone Cold Steve Austin on the crucifix. And when he kidnapped Stephanie McMahon. They didn't show the wedding they did. But it showed that when he is in the limousine and he's like, "Where to, Steph?" And it just shows his whole Ministry of Darkness age. I really liked the Undertaker on the Ministry of Darkness era. That was really cool. And then it shows Gene Snitsky, because it wasn't his fault. They hate that he got, but he got shown that he's an option here. That he's one of them. You're gonna find out what I mean about that if you don't know what I'm talking about. When he says it wasn't his fault. So Gene Snitsky had his first match with Kane, and what ended up happening was at the time they were doing the whole angle with Kane and Lita, where Kane technically raped Lita, and Kane was gonna go off the top rope and stomp a chair into Snitsky's throat, but Lita stopped him, and Kane tries to get her outside the ring, and she's pregnant at the time because technically Kane and Lita having a kid, and Snitsky hits Kane in the back with the chair. Kane lands on Lita, and the baby's in big trouble, and they're not able to save the baby, so Kane's gonna beat up Snitsky for this. But Snitsky says it wasn't his fault because he didn't mean to hit Kane, so that way he would fall, which is technically true because if Kane, wasn't such a big dick to Lita, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. Then Snitsky beating up Kane with a steel pipe, and it shows that segment on the highlight reel with Chris Jericho, Trish Stratus, and Lita, and Snitsky comes out with like a baby, and he says that the baby doesn't have a name. And he asks, and he says to Lita, "Does your baby have a name?" And then he ends up kicking this baby because he's like, "You can't have him, it's mine, and I can do whatever I want to him." And he kicks the baby into the crowd, and it ends up being a fake baby, but it was pretty funny. The Snitsky stuff was actually both comedy and like monstrous. I actually thought the Snitsky stuff was pretty cool. And then it shows with Vince McMahon when it had the Vince McMahon Appreciation Night, and he ended up, everybody hated on him, so he left, and then he went into his limousine and it exploded. So technically Vince McMahon died, because that was going to be like the big storyline of 2007, and it wasn't, and it didn't end up being so, because originally the plans, I heard this was the plan, that originally we were gonna not know who killed Vince McMahon, who killed him, and what ended up happening was what was gonna happen was at WrestleMania 24, it was gonna be revealed to be Mr. Kennedy, who was gonna be an illegitimate son of Vince McMahon. I think it was going to get revealed before this, I'm not exactly sure. But then it was going to lead to a match between Mr. Kennedy and Triple H. And Mr. Kennedy was supposed to win, and that was going to be Mr. Kennedy's big push. And Vince McMahon was going to end up returning somehow. I know that was like the original plan, that the original killer was Mr. Kennedy. But then it didn't happen because of the whole Chris Benoit tragedy, so Vince McMahon had to go out of character and break the storyline and show up on TV during the Chris Benoit tribute show. And that's really all that happened there. So, yeah, they did that. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Uh, you know, it sucks they couldn't follow through with the storyline. Um, but, it probably wouldn't have even worked out anyways, let's be honest, because the WWE creative direction wasn't very good. And then they ended up having the steroid scandal with Mr. Kennedy anyways. And then, well, actually, maybe that wouldn't even happen then, because then Chris Benoit wouldn't have died, though. So maybe who knows if the steroid stuff in 2007 would have happened. But let's just say it still did happen, and then Kennedy always ended up getting injured, so, they always tried to push Mr. Kennedy, so maybe it wouldn't have turned out. That kind of sucks. So yeah, that ended up happening, though. And then it shows referee Tim White. This maybe actually was the best one. I'm not really sure. It was these WWE.com clips of Josh Matthews interviewing Tim White. Because during the Chris Jericho Triple H Hell in a Cell match, Tim White ended up getting injured. And he had an injured shoulder, so he had to retire from being a referee. So he was at a low point, and they were at this place, I forget the name of it, where Tim White was just feeling down on himself. He always had friends, but now he has nothing. So he has a shotgun, and he's just gonna end himself. I forget I don't think it was a shotgun, but it was a gun, and he was just gonna kill himself. And he shoots himself, and Josh Matthews would always say at the end, "Tim, that's not wise." It was like his catchphrase. And this was like a weekly WWE.com show. I don't know when it aired, but it was like a weekly WWE.com show of Tim White trying to kill himself, but he always failed. Because this time he ended up shooting himself in the foot, which I don't know how that happens. Like, how do you go to shoot yourself in the head, but you end up shooting yourself in the foot? But he would like try to eat rat poisons, where like there was like this poisonous thing where that rats couldn't eat and you would die. He tried to he had like this big fan that he tried to like throw himself in, and all blood would come out. And he used like a brick to hold himself down as a weight, so that way he could drown himself in the fish tank. And he tried to electrocute himself with the toaster by putting the toaster in the bathtub while he's standing in it. Just some crazy stuff. What else did he try to do? They were on the phone, and him and Josh, and he tried to choke himself with the phone wire. And he was eating like mad cow disease stuff. There's a lot of crazy stuff he tried to do to kill himself. And then eventually they went back to that same place, and him and Josh Matthews ended up getting really drunk. And Josh Matthews gave him a gun, and Tim White ended up shooting him because they were so drunk they didn't know what they were doing. And at the end, Tim White ends up saying, "Josh, that's not wise," because always Josh Matthews would say it to him. And it was just hilarious. I don't know how. I might try to find these these clips on YouTube, because they just look hilarious. It was awesome, and funny stuff. And then they go to Al Wilson. These next two are pretty bad, in my opinion. So Al Wilson is Tori Wilson's father. I don't know if it's actually Tori Wilson's father or not, but I'm just going with that. And yeah, what we know, him and Dawn Marie ended up in a relationship, and they were gonna marry each other, and Al Wilson offers to marry her, and Tori Wilson isn't fine with this. I remember they tried to do a storyline where Tori Wilson had to have sex with Dawn Marie, so that way it wouldn't happen, but it didn't end up happening. And then they had like a strip wedding, and then pretty much he dies during the honeymoon, because I guess there was too much excitement for him. So Tori Wilson ended up going, and Dawn Marie says, "You never cared about your father. You never cared about his happiness." So she slaps him, and then they start going off on him. And she says sorry. And then Dawn Marie attacks her with a lamp from behind. And yeah, this was bad. I actually thought it was going to end up being like a ruse or something, and Al Wilson was just going to sprint up. I don't know why when I was watching this. I can't believe this was a thing. And then it shows Triple H and the whole Katie Vick storyline with Kane, where Kane apparently killed Katie Vick and probably had sex, you know, while she was dead. I think that ended up being a joke. I remember they actually did turn it into a joke, actually. And what ended up happening was they had this videotape where Triple H is pretending to be Kane, having sex with like a mannequin that's supposed to be Katie Vick. It was just bad. The Katie Vick storyline was like one of the worst storylines in wrestling. I don't know if it's the worst, but it's one of the worst. And it was just bad. But other than that, that's this week's episode. Not good. I didn't think it was very good because this was a lot of the bad stuff. Actually, let me look at it, actually. Actually, the Undertaker stuff, I liked looking back on. The Gene Snitsky stuff, the Vince McMahon, the Tim White stuff, iOS. Okay, I'll say it was okay. But there was some stuff that the Triple H and Katie Vick being on here, that was, I guess that had to be on here, but I thought it was they would forget about that. The Al Wilson thing, just kind of forget about that. And the Big Show stuff isn't the greatest. But other than that, I'll give it an average episode. It was an average one. And I think there's one more left, and I'm going to review that episode when I get a chance. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you want to check out my other channels, you can click right here to check out my own The Talkinator channel for all of my non-wrestling videos on there. Over here to check out my CM Brothers channel, and where I talk about both wrestling and non-wrestling fans. And down below to check out my friend James Hebert has 2 YouTube channels, and you can check out his James Hebert channel down below. And he makes a lot of custom Titantrons of wrestlers and stuff like that. And somewhere in the annotations here, you can check out his Weymouth Youth Wrestling channel, where he's holding a tournament of 32 superstars. And I'm one of those people in that tournament. And I'm going to win that tournament and become the very first WYW champion. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.